Hello, and welcome back to the Bibliophile Hour. I am your host, Erica the Bibliophile. How are you today? I'm doing all right. As you heard with my Family Matters reference, I just poured myself a glass of wine, and we are finishing up the Black Effect series. Let's get started. Okay, so where we left off with the Black Effect, the first book, the ending, is Nadir finding Amy and Canton in the club together, appearing as if they're about to kiss. And this is where we learn that Canton is actually Jade's ex-boyfriend that Nadir, took Jade from. And Nadir says to Canton, "You still in your feelings? You gotta prey on my wife because you're still mad about me taking your bitch." And it's just like, wait a minute. I thought you loved these women. I thought, these were your queens. She was your other half. Y'all were kindred spirits. How you gonna call your own woman a bitch? And Nadir turns to Amy and he calls her gullible. And she turns around and calls him abusive. So with that, Canton calls Nadir a pussy for putting his hands on a woman, which at that moment, I'm not going to argue with him because, like I said last episode, I don't agree with Nadir putting his hands on Amy, but I know that he got caught up in the moment. But you still, you're not right. I'm not on your side. And so Nadir pulls out a gun, but security comes in between them and says, you can't do that here. We can't have that at the club. So Nadir tells Amy that she's dead to him, especially after attacking his mama. So Amy tells him she deserved it, especially after spitting on me. But Nadir is shocked by the news, saying this is news to him. And it's like, of course, your mama is a drama queen. She's not going to tell you the whole truth about the situation. She's just going to do what makes Amy look like a terrible person and make her look good because she doesn't want you with Amy anyway. And so Amy is finally getting, what she wanted, but she doesn't feel good about it because it's like you're finally getting the freedom that you actually needed, but not at the cost of ruining all of her relationships. Because it's like she doesn't have her parents because that relationship is tarnished. Her brother is, overseas, so she doesn't have that. And she's losing her husband. So it's like, yeah, you're independent, but at what cost? But now she is also suspicious of Canton. And she tells him that he needs to prove that he wasn't plotting on her. Because it's like, it's such a coincidence that you just happen to be the boyfriend of my quote-unquote sister wife, and you never mentioned that. Because it's like, there's no way that you don't know who I am, who my man is in our relationship. So Canton, he was lying about knowing who Amy was prior to speaking to her, because he still checks Jade's Facebook from time to time, even though he claims to be over her. And he saw Amy in a few of the pictures. He and Jade had been together since high school. Jade had always been money hungry, so it was nothing for her to leave him for Nadir. And he's still carrying feelings for her. Like I said, he's, being a typical man, claiming bitches ain't shit, and he don't care about her anymore. He doesn't really feel anything, but he really is still checking up on her, still looking at her. He can't let her go, even though she did him wrong. And that always made me question, like how in the first book, Nadir just swore he was so in love with her. Can you really have deep feelings for somebody who just ups and leaves their partner like that? Even if you two think that you're meant to be together, shouldn't you officially close one door before opening up another? Nadir, he was prepared to work things out and take all the blame for the things that happened. And that's why he went looking for Amy. But all of that went out the window when he saw Amy and Canton together. So when he comes home, he's pissed. Ray is trying to ask him what's going on, but he turns to one of the maids and tells them to pack up Amy's room. She no longer stays here. Get all her stuff. He tells Ray and Jade that Amy was with another man and she's out. Don't ask no questions. She's no longer a part of this family. He catches Jade smirking and he snaps on her. He's like, do you think seeing me messed up is funny? I just lost my wife and I'm telling you that I saw her with somebody else. You see me upset and you get joy from this? And he blames her for all the drama that's happening, because if she would have never told him what Amy was feeling and what Amy said, then they wouldn't be going through everything that happened after. And it's that's not fair. If anything, you should, in that instance, that would draw you and Jade closer together, because Jade, she didn't keep it from you, and she actually told you that, she's walking around here unhappy. She don't love you like we do, at least not in this moment. I can see why he's upset, because she does seem to draw glee from it. But if she would have came, Amy is having these feelings, maybe you guys should talk about it. But Jade okay, I changed my mind, because Jade twisted it yeah, you need to kick her out. And it seems in a way Jade has always been jealous of Amy, which boggles my mind, because in the beginning she, as well as Ray, was telling Amy how good of a fit she would be in the family. And it seems when Amy got there, that changed for Jade. Amy is restless, thinking about Canton and Nadir. Ray reaches out to her, because even though Nadir told her not to, she's I'm not just gonna throw her away. She is my sister wife. She's my sister. I'm still going to talk to her. And Amy calls her from her new cell phone, and they meet up. Oh, excuse me. As they're talking, the police show up to arrest her. So because they haven't found her in all this time, and the one time they do find her is when she's having lunch with Ray, Amy accuses Ray of setting her up. But Ray swears that she didn't, which is kind of messed up too, because it's just I reach out to you because I'm not going to turn my back on you like that. And unfortunately, you do get arrested, but that's not my fault. And I think Amy knows that, because Ray isn't that type of person. Ray is really sweet, from the beginning to the end. When she gets into the lifestyle, I think although she says she didn't like it at first, I think she accepted it for what it was and looked into it and grew into it. So she's never been backstabby at all. So Nadir's meeting with Sherman, who, if you remember, is the candidate running for mayor that they're backing. And he tells him that because he ruined a 30-year marriage, that he should go ahead and pay the person who is extorting him. At first, Sherman tries to fight it and tells Nadir that he needs to do a better job of getting this person to back off. But Nadir tells him no. And of course, with Dom on his side, Sherman knows that he's fighting a lost cause. After he leaves, Nadir tells Dom that it's Amy's dad, Nate, who is doing the blackmailing. Nadir goes to see his mom and asks her why she didn't tell him about spitting. Why? Did I say it right? I feel like I just did a tongue twister. Why she didn't tell him about her spitting on Amy. And it's your mom. You love her, so you excuse all of her BS. But she's not going to tell you the 100% truth. And what does Lena do? She lies about it and says she did not spit Amy, but she did get Amy arrested and Jade helped her. How did she help her? She followed followed Ray. Jade followed Ray. And that's how she got her arrested. So Canton bails Amy out of jail and he picks her up. Amy cashed out him the money right away, saying she didn't want to owe him anything. And now that they're seeing each other face to face, she demands an explanation about his relationship with Jade and how did he or did he not what am I trying to say? Plotted on her. And he tells her that he and Jade had plans together. They had plans after college to get married, to become entrepreneurs. But Jade is a spoiled daddy's girl who likes to be taken care of instead of doing any hard work. She started going out more and wearing less. And then one day she comes home and tells him she met someone else and she's moving in with him. So, of course, after that, Canton found out who it was, which is Nadir, and he ran up on him with another woman at the time, which I'm assuming was Ray, and tried to confront him. Nadir just laughed at him, like brushing him off, like, she's my woman now. And when Canton tries to call Jade at a later date, she changed her number, so he had no way of getting in contact with her. But he swears to Amy that their friendship was completely organic. And he finds himself being drawn to Amy, even though he knows that he shouldn't. Like, he shouldn't take it there with her. Amy has brought herself a car. She's trying to do things on her own now. Which I am so happy for her. Because I always felt like when I first read this book, I was so upset with Amy. Like, I really placed all the blame on her, and I don't think I acknowledged her accomplishments. As I mentioned in my last episode, I do have a YouTube, so I have reviewed these books before, but I'm doing it again on the podcast because these are the books that I took notes on specifically, and I still have them saved, so I'm going to start off with these books. But yeah, in my review on YouTube, I just completely knocked Amy down. And I want to take the time to acknowledge her finally doing some things for herself. Because even though she had a job with her parents and she had a car, it was nothing like the things that Nadir did for her. And how she just went from one household to another of somebody having control over her. So in this time of her being, excommunicated from the house, she's doing things for herself. And I really want to applaud her on that, for finally standing on her own 2 feet. And you might just say, like, wow, you're giving her a lot for buying a car. But it's like, it's not just a car. It's just her doing it on her own with nobody else's help. And that's just something to be applauded, because everybody's not a get it out the mud type of person. So when you finally do something on your own, you feel good about it. And we want to applaud every little step of someone getting better in a way, if that makes sense. So after she buys herself a car, she pulls up on her mom at the church that they go to. And she takes her out on the sidewalk, like across from the church, and where Amy just tears into Fia for being a hypocrite. And Fia cries, saying that she's human. And it's just like, Mom, was I not human all those other times you swore I was going to hell and told me I was, venturing off from God's path, and every time I didn't do what you wanted me to do, I was going to hell. But now that your sins have come to the light, you're only human. Funny how that works, huh? And I just, it's a conversation for another day, because I just don't want to bash the church. But it is church, but it's more so the people of the church who claim that they are of God. And all the ways that they condemn you is actually what they're doing themselves. But they want to make sure that you stay in the spotlight, that the light is on you, and that all your sins are laid to bear while they can hide and do theirs in the dark. And it just gets on my nerves. But anyway, Amy calls her a stranger and blames her for her failed relationship with Nadir. And it's like, Amy, baby girl, it's not realistic, because although you may feel that way, you're still an adult. You still have your own feelings, and you can still make up your mind. Because the moment you decided that you were going to marry him and walk away from your parents, you could have strove to be better and did things different. You could have told Nadir that things were wrong and that you felt the way and that maybe you wanted to go to therapy instead of just trying to talk to your brother. Because even though your brother is your best friend, there's only so much that you can tell him as your brother. It's like you should have got some outside help. You should have talked to somebody. So, yes, while your parents and not just your mother played a part in this, she's not the only reason. You are also your own person. And so, after she leaves, Nate, her dad calls her asking, what did she do to Fia? And it's like, excuse me? What did I do? What did I do to that grown woman? And he says that Fia called him saying that Amy cursed her out, which she did not. And that's another thing I can't stand about parents. It's like, as soon as you try to get your own voice, it's, oh, you talking back to me now? You're disrespecting me? No, I can have a conversation with you and speak my mind, and that is not disrespectful. Some parents just want little lapdogs, and it's like, that's not the way it goes. Which I am so thankful for my parents. We can have conversations. We can talk. I don't have to bite my tongue, and they can understand where I'm coming from. So when I see stuff like that, it gets on my nerves because it's like, kids can talk. You know, you can have conversations with your child. They don't just have to do what you say. They're your child. They're not a pet. And, what does Fia say? And she also accuses Nate of turning Amy against her. And it's like, where have you been her entire childhood? Because even though when she stayed under y'all's roof and did what y'all said, it wasn't all sweet with y'all. So don't just blame that on him and say that he turned Amy against you. That makes no sense. But when somebody is crying victim, nothing they say ever, rarely makes sense. And Amy tells him about her arrest, and he tells her that he's going to get her an attorney, which I don't understand because I wouldn't have told him about that, but I know that Amy desperately wants her parent, like a relationship with her parents, which I can understand, but at the same time, it's like, girl, it's costing you your sanity. So even though you and him are like getting along and kind of commiserating over these partners that y'all both swear did y'all wrong, I just wouldn't let him in that easy. I just couldn't do it. So Nadir confronts Ray and Jade. He's confronting Ray about going to see Amy, even though he told her not to. And then he's confronting Jade about following Ray to get Amy arrested. And Ray says, what I said earlier, how she feels that Amy is still family. And she blames Lena for Amy thinking that she set her up. And blame Jade. And Nadir tells her, oh, I think Jade knows about that. And Jade had overheard Ray on the phone talking to Amy. So she waited for Ray to get dressed, Ray to get in her car, and she followed her. Then she called Lena, who then called the police and gave them Amy and Ray's location. And of course, Ray is pissed. She's like, you followed me? Really? So it's like, and you eavesdropping on my conversation. So she tells Nadir that she can't stay in the same house as Jade because she can't trust her anymore. It's like, I can't have a private conversation in my own house without the fear of somebody listening and then following me. Yeah, I'm on Ray's side with that because it's like, girl, really? I would want to fight her off of that. It's like, I just lost my baby and I just lost my friend. And now I got to worry about you eavesdropping and following me. Like, that's enough to get you swung on. And I would really swing on her. Like, we would be fighting. And she, too, now blames Jade for the family falling apart. And Nadir sends Jade to one of his condos until Ray cools off. It's just like, everybody needs a break from you because you seem to be causing the most chaos in this house. Canton goes to visit his mama and he runs into his cousins. His mom took in the two cousins when they were younger and they raised them. And their names are Zay and Reem, who are robbers and scammers. Campton tells his mom about Amy, but he also tells her about her connection to Jade. And when his mom asks how he found out about Amy, he reveals that he was on Jade's page. And his mom tells him that he needs to leave Jade alone. And he swears, like, oh, Mom, I ain't thinking about that girl. I'm off her. But it's like, if you are off her, why are you going onto her Facebook page? Why do you even still know her name? Like, why do you still have access to her like that? That makes no sense. And his mom tells him, your mouth says one thing, but your actions say another. She tells him to be careful before he gets his heart broken again. And Amy gets an email from her lawyer that they set up a meeting with Nadir and his lawyer to go over to dissolve the marriage. And Nate offers to go with her. Now we're at the meeting of Amy and Nadir and their lawyers. Amy comes, well, she came without an attorney. Nadir's attorney goes over the stipulations of both of them having to agree to separate and asks them both if they do. They both say yes. Nadir starts off, like throwing shots. He says, yep, can't have a cheater on my team. My mama tried to warn me. I regret ever putting you in a position to be next to me. She said you were never good enough for me, and that ended up being true. And this is where hurt people come in, and you just throwing out these words just to hurt her, because can't have a cheater on my team. My mama tried to warn me. Your mama lied to you, and you know it's a lie, and you just trying to hurt her feelings. I regret even putting you in a position to be next to me. You literally chased this girl, even though she showed you in the beginning how immature she was and how she really wasn't built for your lifestyle, because she called your then wives horses in a stable and said she wanted no part of that. She didn't want to be a part of your harem. She didn't want to share her man. She told you all of those things. So you brought that on yourself. She said you were never good enough for me, and that ended up being true. How is that true? Because she didn't bend to your will at the time and do everything you told her to do. And then when she checked your wife for getting, fly at the mouth, saying that she was useless because she couldn't produce a baby. And now that you know that she's been hanging out with this guy, because technically they never kissed. And they, I do believe in emotional cheating, but it's just like you didn't catch her doing anything. If anything, you caught her dancing. And Amy threatens to ruin him and asks his attorney if he knows about his client being an abuser. The attorney looks at Nadir, but he kind of brushes off her statement and tries to get back to the contract. Amy not letting it go though. She says, he made my life hell. He was controlling and didn't show much love. But the thing is, Amy, you had time to call this off, because Ray and Jay told you that the day of your wedding. They told you he wouldn't be there a lot. He has 2 separate businesses to run, so he's not going to be there all the time. As far as him not showing much love, again, was this something that you told him, or did you just roll with the punches? He doesn't show who he really is, meaning, he's not around enough. He doesn't open up. And it's really, with 2 other women, you're never going to get all of him, because he has to be split in 3 different directions. And then when y'all started bringing kids into the fold, even though Amy hasn't had a child yet, he has 2 other sons. So his time is cut, even into a shorter amount of time that he can give you. He wasn't affectionate outside of the bedroom. Again, something that y'all could have brought up, but y'all didn't. You, Jade, and Ray, y'all just take it as face value because he's quote unquote controlling and wants things his way. But you could have fought back. No, I'm not doing it that way. I want to do it this way. If you left one situation being your parents because you said they were too controlling and you got with him to get away from that, why would you then just lay down and accept it when he started doing the same thing? And she tells him that she hates being around them when it has to be all three of them all of the time. She's like, I can deal with if you want to go have date night with Ray or date night with Jade, or even we can have our own date night, but we don't have to be together all of the time just so you can prove to the world that you have your household under control and we're a united front. That makes no sense. And he made her be around his mother and endure verbal abuse from her. And this I agree with. I will back her up 100%. Because like I said, he wanted that united front. They all ride in the car together. They all be around each other. It's never separately. They all have to be together all of the time. So that meant going to family dinner weekly and enduring all the little sly comments that his mom had to throw her way. And then when she finally said something back, then he snaps at her. It's like, no, get your mother before I get her for you. And then we're all going to have a problem. Because even with her telling her to mind her business, with Amy telling Lena to mind her business, that was still her being polite, in my opinion. And Amy also says he was never a husband. He just gave her money and dick. And it's just like, whoa, really? Like, y'all are going for the jugular here. Y'all are not being nice to each other. But in the end, in most cases, it always ends that way in divorce. When it's divorce time, people get ugly. And Nadir tells her, if I'm an abuser, she's a user. He acknowledges knowing she used him to get away from her parents, but he wanted her too badly. And it's just like, so when you say that you regret giving her a chance to even get close to you, it's just like, that was your fault. Yeah, she used you to get away from her parents. That was something that y'all could have talked about, because if you knew about it, why didn't you address it yourself? You could have said, hey, I know you just want to get away from them, but I really like you, or I really love you, so can we work on making this a real relationship? And she didn't like him or want to build a life with him, which is true, because that goes back to her just wanting to get away from her parents. But she didn't really love him or want to build a life with him. And then she brings up the fact that he paid off her parents and asks him, what kind of man are you? And Nadir, he gave it to her straight. I'm a man who wanted to protect his wife. Your parents threatened to make your life miserable for choosing to be with me. Your mother said she would show up any and everywhere we were. So I paid them off so you would be with me. They didn't have to take the money, which is so true. Because it's just like, if I come to you and say, I'm going to give you $250K, don't ever talk to her or call her again. As her parents, you could say, you could take this money and stick it up your ass. I still want to talk to my daughter. But no, y'all were money hungry. Y'all didn't really like her either, because it's just like she was just in y'all house and somebody that y'all could boss around and tell that she was going to hell because she didn't follow y'all rules. He also vaguely mentions putting money in her dad's pocket and keeping him out of jail. Of course, she doesn't know what that means, but we know that that means he got him the $250K and kept him from going to jail for trying to extort a politician. So it's just like, while you're being cute, I'm really helping your family. And Amy will get $1 million, her things from her room at their house, and her truck. But she doesn't want any of it, but he ignores her and just says, give me an address so I can send you your things and we can be done. But also before he leaves, he gives her an envelope from Ray. It's a letter from Ray. When Nadir walks out, he sees Nate, who's waiting on Amy to come out, and he goes over to confront him. I see you tried to make me out to be the bad guy, and as if I forced you and your wife to take the money. You could have said no. Stop playing victim and take accountability. And he walks away, with hurt pride and a broken heart. But what he said to Nate is also true. It's like, when I came to see you and I found out that you were the extortionist from Sherman, you kind of broke down in front of me saying that your wife cheated on you. And then, when you go to your daughter, you make it seem like I forced you or bullied you into taking this money. And that wasn't the case. So at some point, you're going to have to stand up and defend yourself and try and stop trying to make it seem like everybody is doing something wrong to you and you're just this innocent guy. Ever been listening to your favorite podcast and think, hey, I want to start my own? Then you need Anchor. It's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First, everyone's favorite word, free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can even make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Amy also confronts her dad and tells him, all it took was a couple of dollars and you agreed to stay away from me. Leave me alone and stay out of my life. And she walks away from him. And Amy is happy/sad that she doesn't have Nadir to turn to anymore. But she's going to use this time to rediscover herself, which, as I spoke about in the beginning, I'm going to clap for her because she's making changes and she's finally doing stuff on her own. She doesn't have someone to turn to take care of this for her anymore. Amy has been ignoring Canteen again. And money comes into his coffee shop demanding 3 times the tax he's already paying, or his coffee shop, and he has a dispensary, will be shut down. And like I said, Money, Dom, and Nadir, they run the city. So people pay them, to have their businesses there. Otherwise, they can't get shut down, and they pay them for protection. Lena calls and she's still trying to run his household. And it's all because Jade keeps calling her. And it's like, why do you continue to call my mom? My mom don't run my household no more. This is my house. She got her own house. But Nadir tells her, if you don't stop, you won't see me or your grandchildren. You're toxic. And Lena kind of punched him in the gut. And she says, you were in love with a woman who didn't love you back. That's toxic, not me. And Nadir hangs up on her, which it's like, it's rude because you hung up on your mama, but it's just like, damn, when you don't want to accept the fact, what else can you do but hang up the phone? And he's been drinking a lot more than usual, getting less sleep now that his peace is gone. It's been a week and he's starting to get depressed. When Ray comes into the room and sits on his lap to ask him how the meeting goes, he asks her, am I a good husband? And she tells him, of course, but there are some things that you can improve on. And he's like, why did you never say this before? And Ray tells him, be honest. You are not the type of person that you can have this discussion with. And she tells him, you can spend more alone time with each wife. Don't make them go places they don't want to go to. Be more understanding and show more affection out of the bedroom. So I guess it's just he only knows how to kiss and hug and rub if they're having sex, which is sad because it's just like, you don't have to be all over me, but I also don't want it to be the only time we're good is if we're having sex with each other. And he asks her how she's doing, and she tells him, I'm fine. Don't worry about me, which of course he's like, psh, girl, you my wife, and you just lost our baby. Of course I'm gonna be worried. I'm always worried about you. And Nadir calls Jade to see if she's ready to come home, but Jade is also still playing victim. She's like, I don't know. Do you guys want me there? Do you need me there? It seems like you're doing pretty well without me. Maybe I need to spend some more time away. And he's like, okay, like, I'm not sure. And he tells her to stop telling Lena what's going on in their household. Because it's like, although you think that that's helping your case, it's really not. If anything, it makes me want to stop dealing with you because you think you can get my mom to control me, and it's not working out in your favor. And she needs to watch her words because Amy's inability to get pregnant affected him as well. It didn't just affect her. So you throwing that up in her face was very rude. And she says again, maybe we should take more time apart since I'm not making you happy. Nadir hangs up on her as well. And it's just like everybody pissing him off at this point. So he's like, you know what? I ain't got time for nobody. And Amy is talking to Amir on a video chat. Then she calls Canton, who calls out her flakiness, telling her, like, I only seem to hear from you when you need something from me. So they make plans to meet up at his coffee shop. And after they get off the phone, she heads out. And when she gets to the coffee shop, Canton's cousins are there and they ask about her truck. How much did it cost? She tells them $100,000, which I wouldn't have told them nothing. I'm like, you can see what type of model my car is. You can look it up yourself. Because when people just start asking you how much stuff costs, that is so... Don't ask me how much nothing costs. And I'm not even a person who got nothing. I'm quick to tell you, hey, I got this at Walmart. It costs $15. These pants were $20 from JCPenney. Whatever. I'm not a big money type person, so that doesn't matter to me. But when you just walk up on me, how much did you pay for this car? Fam, get out my face. You must make a lot of bread to be able to afford that. Like, see, here we go with the conversation. You being back up. I don't care if y'all are my friend's cousins. Y'all don't need to know nothing about me to be asking me these type of questions. And she tells them that she has a YouTube channel. So, I heard people get paid a lot of dough from doing YouTube. And as she leaves, she hears, be safe. So it's like, now you threatening me. Because for you to just ask how much stuff costs, now you assuming that I got a lot of money, then I think I've seen y'all before. Y'all ain't never told me to be safe. Now you telling me to be safe? Be safe from what? From you? You gonna do something? See, like, I'm not a rah-rah person, but when I feel like you threatening me, it's like something come out. Because it's like, what you mean be safe? Be safe from what? And Amy meets up with her lawyer, and they're going to fight the charges that Lena is pressing against her. And Amy has Canton as a witness because he was there when she attacked Lena for spitting on her. And there is possibly video of Lena spitting on her to justify her actions outside of the hotel that Amy was staying in at that time. And she calls Lena after her meeting with her attorney to tell Lena that she should drop the charges, otherwise she will just be embarrassing her family because there's video of her spitting on her. And I wouldn't have told her nothing, because at this point, the last time that Amy spoke to Nadir was at the divorce meeting, and then she's been having these problems with Lena, and then she also thinks that Ray set her up. So it's just like, I would have let all that spill out. And it's not even to get back at Nadir or to get back at Ray. It's more so to embarrass Lena. It's like, you've been talking all this stuff about me, then you spit on me, and when I justifiably beat your ass, you get me arrested for attack. So if there's video of you spitting on me and that can justify me doing what I did to you, I'm going to let all that play out. There's no way I'm going to keep that on the low. And Amy finally opens Ray's letter, which she declared her innocence from. Like, I had nothing to do with that. And actually, Jade was the one who followed me and called Lena. And so she calls Ray, and Ray goes into her closet. Even though Jade isn't staying at the house, she's paranoid now. She's like, I can't trust anybody. So now Sherman is out. He's no longer running for mayor because he's more trouble than he's worth. More people came out of the woodworks demanding money after he paid Nate for sleeping with his wife, and Sherman admitted that he wronged so many people. It could have literally been anybody. So when you see one person got paid, here goes more people. So it's like, to nip all that in the bud, he's no longer our candidate. He's no longer running. And we find out that Nadir sent money to Canton because, of course, he was feeling away. So it's like, money, go tell him the rent's raised up. And if he don't want to pay it, then he no longer has businesses. Jade comes back home and Nadir attempts to make up with her, but she ruins it. Because while they're having sex, she's trying to whisper in his ear, all you need is me and no one else. And it's like, baby girl, you the second wife. You're not even the first. So if I get rid of anybody, it would be you, and I will stick with the one who's been loyal and who I love. Well, I shouldn't say love the most, but who I've been with the longest. I'm not giving her up. And then she also claims to be the only loyal one. So Nadir stops and tells her she needs to stop her attempts at manipulating him, as if he can't see through that. And she also needs to stop listening to her mama, because his mama will have her as the next one out the door. As Canton is getting ready to hang out with Amy, his cousins are asking questions. They want to know if Amy is someone he's feeling or wants to be with, but Canton just calls her the homie. So his cousins say less. And he should have known something right there, because if your cousins are known robbers and scammers, and they tell you say less, and they asking you how you feel about this girl, there's no way it's not going in your mind like, okay, they about to hit her up. And you know that. You know how your cousins are. So that just, I don't know. Canton, he can try to act like he innocent, but I don't believe it. Amy lets him know that Lena dropped the charges because, of course, when she finds out there's possible video of her spitting on someone, she can't claim innocent how she been doing. So Ray notices that Nadir is more quiet. He's not going to the weekly dinners with his family anymore. And she tells him that Lena is texting her, telling her she's disloyal and doesn't deserve Nadir. Also, Lena and Jade are talking several times a day, bashing Amy. And that's never a good thing. When your relationship is only centered around both of y'all hatreds for somebody else, that relationship is going to fizzle out fast, because eventually somebody is going to be like, man, ain't you tired of talking about her yet? Or the only time y'all sit around is when y'all bring this person up. Jade, you have a successful handbag business that you got going on, honey. You ain't got time to sew bags or go or paperwork. You got so much other stuff you could be doing. You could be talking to your husband instead of talking to his mama about somebody who is no longer in y'all lives. And so, it's just like Nadir, he admits that he's been struggling over Amy being gone, but he promises to be a better husband. And now we're 2 months later of 3 months of them being apart. Amy is getting out of her truck at home when someone forces her back inside. They unlock the door and she can see two men in all black and ski masks get in the truck as well. They tell her to go to the nearest ATM, but since Amy just moved into her house, she doesn't really know the area yet, so she doesn't know. And she's slapped a few times because they think she's lying. And, one of them pulls out a gun and tells her, we're not playing with you. Find an ATM. They find an ATM and they tell her to pull out as much as she can. And one of them says, I know that nigga you was married to set you up real nice. So that's a red flag that whoever this is knows her, or at least knows of her. And Amy plays as if she doesn't know what they're talking about. And one of them hits her in the head with the gun. She can only pull out $500. Like every ATM, the max amount is $500. And the other one asks, where's the money your husband left you? So when she doesn't answer, they hit her in the jaw with the gun. So she's now been slapped, hit in the head, and then hit in the face with the gun. And they plan to hold her for ransom, believing that Nadir will pay to get her back. And Amy jumps out because they forced her into the back. And Amy jumps out of the moving truck, trying to run away on a twisted ankle while yelling out for help. And they come after her, shooting at her, because they can't have a victim of their attempted robbery. And one of the bullets penetrates her and she passes out. So Nadir gets a call from Dom about Amy's attack, and Dom lets him know that she's at his private facility. One of the police officers is on Dom's payroll, so he notices who Amy is when they find her and gives him a call. So when Nadir arrives, Amy is being prepped for surgery. She has a bullet in her right arm, a concussion, and multiple contusions to the face. When Amy wakes up, Nadir is right by her side. He brought her back to his estate, but she's at the guest house. She's not inside the main house. So Amy repeats what happens, and Nadir apologizes for leaving her on her own. And he tells her she can't go back to her house because they know where she lives and could possibly come back, and they still have her truck. Canton gets a call from his mom about his cousins. She's wanting to know where are they, what's going on, because they claim to have construction jobs, but mama says they never come in the house dirty. I don't see them, with no construction gear or anything, but they suddenly have lots of money, and they even bought her a Chanel purse. And Canton knows that they hit a lick, but not who, but he goes to his cousins and tells them that they have a month to move out because he refuses to have any retaliation come back to his mom's door. And Canton tries to get in contact with Amy, but gets no response. At dinner, Nadir tells his wife and his friend about Amy's attack. So when Ray finds out that she's on the estate, she gets up and goes straight to her. But Jay catches an attitude and tells him he should have asked her before he brought her into her house. He needs to put Amy out, and he should have just let her die. And Jade gets up from the table and goes to call Lena, who comes over and tries to tell Nadir that he's wrong. Nadir just looks at his mom, doesn't even respond to her, just pulls out his phone and calls his dad and tells his dad to tell his wife to get out of his house and to get out of his business. So as soon as he hangs up, Lena's phone starts ringing, and she answers and says, I was just trying to da-da-da, but Papa Ali is like, get home now and stay out that boy business. Nadir gives Jade one last warning. He tells her, if you tell my mom one more thing, you are out. Although Nadir thinks otherwise, Amy doesn't believe that Canton had something to do with it. Nadir thinks that they slept together, and Amy tells him, I never even kissed him. That night at the bar, they were about to kiss, but their lips never really touched because Canton saw Nadir coming through the door or, walking closer to them. And Nadir gives her a sincere apology for putting his hands on her. This is the first time they're having a heart-to-heart after he choked her up and threw her down on the ground after she threw the glass at Jay's face. Her parents arrive, and Nadir allows them to come onto his property, which he's way better than me. I'm like, y'all can see her when she feeling all better, and she go back to her own house. Fia, she don't even get through the door good before she start with her bull. She tells Amy tells her that she has no room to talk. So all her soapbox that she's trying to get on, she can climb right back off of it. And Fia tells her Nate was the one to actually cheat first. It may not have been physically, but it was emotionally. So while he's trying to blame this all on me, he was doing some cheating of his own with a woman at the church. And Amy tells them both that she's done. I'm grown. I got my own problems now. I'm not worried about y'all. But she tells her dad to pass along a message to Canton. Amy is starting to feel a little bit better, and she's noticing that her credit cards have been used for multiple purposes. So Ray tells her she can report it for fraud so they can open an investigation, and that may lead back to who attacked her. Jade walks in and Ray asks her, like, what are you doing here? And Jade says, this is my house, ain't it? And it's like, not really. Technically, it's Nadir's house. Jade accuses Amy of setting up the attack on herself just to get Nadir to come to her rescue. And Ray tells her she is turning into Lena, attempting to be the HBIC, no New York, but she better know her place before she is replaced. And ironically, and I say ironically, because it's like, Amy, no, this ain't the one for you, sweetheart. But Amy calls Jade weak and says she's easily influenced. And Jade is trying so hard to intimidate Amy. She tells her, once I tell Nadir I want you gone, you'll be transported to hospice care. And Amy's response is, when she's fully healed, she gonna do her how she did Lena. But Jade comes back and tells her she'll finish what the robbers started. And I never really mentioned, but when the author describes Jade, she works out a lot, so she's very toned. So it's just like, she's not gonna be easily taken down with all the shit that they talking back and forth to each other. So Amy tells Jade that she's a bird and a follower, but Jade tells her, you're immature. You have the mentality of a child. You can't think for yourself. You have no backbone. You can't get pregnant, so you're no threat to me. And it's like, once again, that thing of you can't get pregnant, I wish she would stop bringing that up and throwing that in her face. Nadir walks in to find sorry. I'm skipping over a part. Amy calls her a gold digger. And she lets her know that how Jade did Canton, and if Nadir ever went broke, she would probably just do the same thing to Nadir and find another rich man to latch on to. So later, when Nadir walks in the door, he finds bags on the floor. And Jade tells him that he has to choose, her or Amy. And he tells her, no, I'm not choosing. You're my wife. And Amy was injured, and I'm going to help her out. And she'll leave when she's healed. But Jade demands that he makes her leave now. And Nadir says, no, I refuse. So Jade says she's leaving. Nadir looks at her and says, well, leave your keys on the table and I'll have someone pack up your room just like I did Amy. And I'll send your stuff to you. Jade wasn't expecting that. So she was left standing alone at the door with her mouth on the floor. Canton's mom calls saying that he has a guest at her house, and when he asks who it is, she won't tell him, just tell him to get there. And when he does, he's surprised to see Jade when he walks through the door, which, again, everybody is better than me, because the mom letting Jade come in the house after she hurt her baby, I'm like, oh, you want to see my son? You can see him, but you gotta wait outside till he gets here. And when Canton asks, what are you doing here? She claims to just want to talk. But Mama Canton tells her to quit faking and don't try to show up now that she knows that Canton has two successful businesses. And she claims that her breakup is not why she's coming around now. And Canton calls bullshit. He knows that she knows he's friends with Amy and that she feels away now. And Jade says Amy isn't as loyal as he thinks she is. And so if he thinks that he's about to replace her with Amy, he's out of luck. And he can see that she's jealous because, again, she says Amy isn't solid. And she's been with Nadir since her attack. And it's just like, since you walked through this door, All you've been talking about is Amy. I asked, what are you doing here? Why are you at my mom's house and you're coming to talk to me about another woman, as if you have some type of claim on me? And then to say that I can't replace you, like, girl, I haven't been with you for 5 years. There have been multiple women to replace you. You're not as special as you think. And even if that's not true, that's what I would say to her. Because it's just like, you're not just going to come and play in my face. Like, oh, I know you ain't found nobody better to replace me. And if you think you can, it ain't going to be this chick who went running back to her husband as soon as something happened to her. Child, let me take a sip of my drink. So, and this upsets Canton because he's been trying to reach Amy. But it's like, why does that information that she's back with Nadir upset you so much? Y'all were never together. Y'all were technically just friends. And Jay didn't tell you the whole story, because if she did, you would know. Like, she was shot and somebody took her car and I think like her cell phone and all that type of information. So she don't have none of that stuff. She has no way to get in contact with you. And Jade asks for his number, but he tells her no. And she insists on giving him her number and says that he can text or call if he wants to. Mama Canton again wants him to not get sucked back in, but he swears he's not. But she saw how he looked at Jade, like as she was leaving. Like, he's still stuck on her.
Amy is doing some work in her like fake hospital bed when Nadir comes creeping in. And Amy asks him if he will be looking for another wife to replace her. The answer is no. He said he's not adding no more people. That's it. And they discuss how much they've grown since they've been apart. Nadir got her a new condo that comes with a guard, and he's going to pay for her to go to physical therapy. After her session, she goes to Canton's coffee shop and she has her dad driving her. Canton is texting Jade when Amy walks in. He immediately, goes in on her about always going missing and only seems to be around when she needs something. He tells her she could have called, texted, and he's also upset about her going back to Nadir. And Amy tells him, I like how you've turned this whole nightmare that happened to me about you. And he tries to apologize, but Amy waves him off and heads back towards the door. And Canton's cousins are walking in and they speak to her, then start talking amongst themselves. So Amy turns around, looks at them, then runs out. Canton, who was already following her like out the door, sees this exchange and runs after her and asks, what's wrong? He knows that his cousins are the robbers. And Amy asks him, were you in on it? Did you do this to me? And although he believes Amy, he tries to make her believe that she's wrong. So Amy pulls out her phone saying that she's calling the police. Canton takes her phone and pleads with her to let him handle it. Amy tells him, boy, fuck you. Give me my phone. And it's like, while I'll agree, it's like, sis, you the one who's letting him know all this information. As soon as them niggas spoke to you, you because I didn't know if I wanted to say it or not. But as soon as they spoke to you, you should have looked at them, been like, bet, and just continued walking out the door. Because they were the idiots that spoke to you anyway, as if you weren't going to recognize their voice. Because the night of the robbery, they didn't disguise anything. They just had on all black and masks. It's like, y'all just talked in y'all regular voices. So, of course, if I hear your voice again, I'm going to know who you are. And Canton knows they did it, but he's not going to turn in his family, and he can't let her turn in his family either. So he tells her, just let me handle it. And she tells him, fine, I won't tell the cops. I'll just tell Nadir. So he takes his cousins and they lay low because he knows Nadir is going to come after them now that Amy is telling him that it was his cousins that did it. So of course Amy goes and tells Nadir what happened. And Nadir says what I said. You shouldn't have said nothing. You should have played it off, then came to me. Now he done told his cousins and they probably somewhere hiding. He gets a call from Jade saying someone wants to speak with him. It's Canton. Canton wants to meet and make a deal. He wants to make sure that Nadir knows that he was not involved and he has proof. When he saw how his cousin showed no remorse for attacking Amy, he changed his mind, deciding to give them up to protect himself and his mom. In the meeting with Nadir and Dom, he plays an audio clip of him confronting his cousins. They admit to doing it and not thinking about him or his relationship to her. And it's like, that's not true because when y'all saw me talking to her before y'all attacked her, you asked me what my relationship with her was like, if she meant anything to me. And still, I'm going back to the say less. The say less means a whole lot. And so, Nadir just says thank you. And he gives the address to where his cousins are. And he asks Nadir how Amy is, but Nadir tells him, don't think about her anymore. Nadir takes Amy out for dinner. He lets Amy know that she doesn't have to look over her shoulder anymore, basically saying, he took care of it. Amy's shocked to learn that Jade left because when she asked him if he was going to get another wife, she's thinking that he still has Ray and Jade, but no, he's just back to Ray. Um, And so she asks, so you're not going to look for another one? He says, no, I'm not going to look for someone new. And Nadir asks to accompany her to her up and coming trip to LA for a beauty event that she's invited to, and she agrees. It's for her YouTube page. Um, Jay wants to pick up where her and Canton left off, but Canton can't trust her. And that was 5 years ago. He doesn't know this new her anymore. So in LA after the event, Amy walks to her suite to see flowers placed everywhere with cards that have like different little sayings in them. And I thought this was so sweet. So one says, "You're still my peace." Another says, "I'm so proud of you. I love the woman you have become. I will always protect you. I'm sorry for being an asshole in the past, and please don't ever dye your hair." Because at some point she mentioned wanting to dye her hair. So Nadir tells Amy that he can't let her go. They both agree to take things slow, but they're going to try again. And when he comes home, he's waiting on Ray to return to her own trip from her homeland. I think it's Jamaica. I forgot though. I should have looked that up. And Nadir tells Ray about the trip, and she's excited that they've reconnected. She's always wanted Amy back home ever since she moved out. Nadir tells her, I'm gonna try, but if she decides she doesn't want to come back, it's just them until the end because he's not gonna try to rebuild his quote unquote empire again. He's done with trying to add new people to their family. And our final chapter is a year later. Amir is officially home and done with his services. He's at Amy's gender reveal. That's right. Our girl is now 7 months pregnant, and they're having a gender reveal slash baby shower. The colors are yellow and green, and Amy and Nadir also got married again. So, of course, Nadir, being his over the top self, he hires professionals to shoot fireworks into the sky, which, of course, will be the color for their baby. And the color is yellow. They are having a daughter. And this is how our thruple, like how their story ends in Happily Ever After. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this series and come back for more. Next week, I believe I am going to be reading Jolie and Keandre, which is a three-part series by Bianca Xavier. Come back and let's see what happens with that couple. Have a beautiful day or evening whenever you hear this. Peace.